Welcome to Quit to Win, the show where we explore the moments people have to let go of a destructive pattern, limiting identity, and the internal battle in order to rebuild their life with purpose and clarity. Our today's guest is Dr. Bilal Ahmed, international and structural cardiologist, co-founder and chief science officer of Lylah Health, creator of the newsletter Prescription for the Heart, and a man whose internal and external mantra is three words: no bullshit ever. Dr. Ahmed did not leave medicine. He expanded, watching patients leave supplements that did not work, seeing a largely unregulated market, swindle hardworking people out of their money, and sitting on compelling data linking God's microbiome health to heart disease. He decided that staying silent and staying purely clinical and was no longer an option. He wanted to be a jack of all trades, and he was determined to master them all. Ballad, it's a pleasure, honor, having you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'd love to. Looking forward to our dialogue.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ballad. So you run for senior class prefect, president in high school, got suspended for refusing to change your campaign slogan. And I won anyway through the popular revolt. The story tells me everything about who you are. What does that teenager reveals about the doctor, the entrepreneur you have become today?
Yeah, I'd like to think that it reveals a few things. One, I have a sense of humor.
Yeah.
Or I'd like to think so. I think maybe only my wife and my child think I'm funny, but I make myself laugh. Beyond that, I think it also shows this desire to not follow stupid rules. So, for the audience, it was basically a poster of little mini pixels of my face that made a larger picture of my face, and it used the old UPS slogan, "What can brown do for you?" Because my skin tone is brown. I was the one of two brown-looking kids at school, and the reason that I was asked to take it down, or the reason that I was suspended when I asked, was that it was racist, and I found it just extremely remarkable that I could be racist against myself. So it was a stupid rule, right? And so stupid rules exist in every aspect of society, and I don't like to follow them because they're stupid. Unless I'll end up in jail for it, then I might think twice.
Yeah, that was really amazing. The fact that, right, starting from the outset, you already more like complicated that despite of the, very, very more direct. So international cardiologists is one of the most demanding specialization in medicine, and they're literally keeping people alive in high stake environment. What does that environment do to a person over time, and what were you seeing in clinic that the training never prepared to face?
Yeah, so it can do a number of things. Interventional cardiologists are people just like any profession. It is a demanding profession, and there's a lot kind of riding on your shoulders in the sense that there is a weight to being in charge of somebody's life. If you lose somebody on the table, that's a lot of weight to carry. And the opposite, if you see yourself as a hero, a god, God forbid, because you're able to use skills to better people's health, then you'll end up with kind of two spectrums: either people who are big-headed and see themselves as some sort of savior and untouchable, or you'll see people who have deep empathy and really care about the work that they do. And so it hopefully I fall somewhere in the middle and closer to the second one than the first one. But it does become an identity if you allow it to. But that's not my identity, in the sense that it's not the only thing that makes me who I am. I like a lot of other stuff, and I also get distracted and bored easily. So that's why I'm doing a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, amazing. I think it's really lovely then that, you're still dedicated to it and still you're still interested in the whole of other stuff too. So you describe the supplement industry as a space full of Dr. OZ style sellout and snake oil. What does it feel like to be a cardiologist with no bullshit mantra, to watch patients spend their money on products that do not work? And how long did you watch that before the frustration become a company?
Yeah, that is a great question. So I'll kind of couch it with this. So it's actually funny. Dr. Oz came up. He was a very well-respected cardiac surgeon, a cardiothoracic surgeon, very well-respected at a very well-respected institution, Columbia University in New York. And he actually came up with one of the procedures that I do as a structural cardiologist called the mitra clip. Basically, there's a valve in your heart, one of the four valves called the mitral valve. And if it's too leaky, it can lead to basically blood in the lungs and failing heart. And you can clip clip those two or the leaflets of the valve together. There's a gap that allows for leakiness. You clip it, it comes together. Now there's not a gap and it's less leaky. So he started off as a very respectable innovator and then turned into this snake oil salesman who was selling, a bunch of bullshit products that ended up in a bunch of lawsuits because they hurt people. So I actually didn't watch the supplement space before I came out with my product. I kind of ended up on accident in the supplement space. It started as clinical research that I did back in 2017 when I was still in training at Brown University. And before we finished the study, the funding or the money for that study went away because COVID-19 hit. And so all the funding, was kind of redirected, understandably so, once in a lifetime pandemic. So the idea stuck with me and I wanted to make something of it. And I ultimately decided instead of letting it go, I'll start a business. And then I started looking at the supplement industry. And what I realized was, people go to the supplement industry to solve some health problem. So it's very similar to regular medicine in the sense that, consumers are going there to find a solution for health, just like patients come and see me in the office to find a solution for their health. The kind of sad part is that there's no regulation. You can do kind of what you want in the supplement space, and what you want tends to be what makes money, and what tends to make money tends to be a little unethical. So for example, I found that, and I won't name companies, but third-party testing of a bunch of kind of famous supplements found a whole host of really kind of crazy things, ranging from the active ingredient on the label. It had, half of that, what the dose was on the label in the actual product, or 0%. So it was literally placebo, all the way to 10% of the product was rat feces. So rat poop. So it's contaminated or being, produced in a contaminated facility. And then there are other issues as well. A lot of supplements these days, they like to say that they're science backed because that gets them consumers. But then when you go to the website, and you try to find the science, you can't find a link to the science, and you Google it, you can't find the study. You go to PubMed, which is kind of Google for studies, and you can't find it. And then you come to realize that there may not actually be a study, or the study's not published yet, and they're lying to you, or, the studies, if they are out there, they're in mice or rats. And so it's not humans, and they're trying to extrapolate to humans, which is not something that you can do. So a lot of issues that I can't solve single-handedly, but I can certainly try to set an example of something that is ethical, that's hopefully still successful because people like to be told the truth.
Yeah. Whoa, that was really a whole lot. And the fact that you getting to see firsthand a whole lot of things that was being done wrongly. Did building something of your own while still in training teach you about yourself that clinical work alone never?
Yeah, absolutely. So it retaught me things that I had kind of forgotten in training. What I mean by that is when you get so specialized and you work in a field that kind of becomes your identity, you lose track of what's going on in the world around you. You have less time to keep up with current affairs and with new technology, so on and so forth. So I got to exercise critical thinking again in spaces that I wasn't an expert in. I wasn't the expert in the room when it came to manufacturing. I wasn't the expert in the room when it came to shipping and logistics. So it feels nice to be able to go into a room and not be the expert, but be able to ask the right questions to learn and become, maybe not the expert, but an expert on that subject matter. So it's kind of like that, jack of all trades, hopefully master of some and not none, but, kind of having information and knowledge about everything. One of the things that I always like to say to, my younger siblings, to people that I'm teaching is, no knowledge is wasted knowledge. At some point it will come in handy because you'll have, a little piece of information sitting here, then you'll get a piece of information here and you can make a connection. And then you'll have, at the end of the day, a node of little dots that give you a better, fuller picture. I also learned to deal with uncertainty because in medicine, there is uncertainty, but, you don't know whether the patient in front of you is going to do well or not, but there's an algorithm, there's an approach that I'm going to approach this type of blockage this way. I'm going to approach this type of blockage this way. So it is a formula kind of. There's no formula for business or being a business person. There are a few kind of general rules, but you kind of make it up as you go. And that's kind of fun, and it's also a little bit
Yeah.
anxiety provoking because of uncertainty. So living with that is a new skill I've acquired.
Yeah, amazing. Learning a bit about whole lot of stuff. And so when the time comes, yeah, the dots, yeah, definitely connect together and bring up a whole lot of new stuff. Yeah, amazing. So your three founding principle are no bullshit, show the data, create something people need, are deceptively simple. So where did those come from? What do they rules out that most supplement companies will never voluntarily give up?
Yeah, so the first two actually came from my personal life. So they're things that I've been saying for a long time. I tell people, even patients, that no bullshit. Like, I'm not going to tell you any bullshit.
Yeah,
I'm going to tell it to you straight. So it was natural to apply that to business. Basically, like you said, deceptively simple. It means a lot of things. What it means is, if there's data, I'm going to show it to you. I'm going to be transparent. So there's transparency under there. I'm going to tell you the truth. There's honesty in there. I'm going to educate you, because most people don't know cutting edge science and they don't have the time to become experts in that. So someone has to teach them as well, so that they know why it's important. So those kind of three things fall under no bullshit ever. I think that some companies, I'm not going to say all other supplement companies are bad. That's disingenuous and would be a lie. Some of them are great and do it really ethically. But one example is Ritual. For example, the founder of Ritual went in front of Congress and said we should regulate supplement companies more heavily. And I agree with that 100%. I couldn't agree more with her. But most companies, I would say, don't follow that set of rules. Show me the data is also kind of a famous saying in medicine and in other fields. And it means kind of the same thing, that if you're saying that this is going to do X, Y, and Z for you, you better show the proof. Because at some point, somebody's going to ask you. And if you can't show the proof, then people are going to know what you are, which is a liar, snake oil, salesman. You may still be successful and make a lot of money like Dr. Oz, but it might be hard to sleep at night. And then the third one is kind of self-evident. That one is truly simple. That give people something that they need. And what I'm trying to create, or what I have created rather, is something that can help prevent heart disease later down the line. And heart disease is the number one killer in the United States and in the world. And it's hard to argue against that, right? You need that,
yeah,
or most people
evidence
need that.
everywhere.
So
Yeah, no bullshit ever. Show the data and create something people need. I think it's really lovely. I'm just trying to kind of look directly into it, seeing different industry, which is quite very applicable. The fact that, yeah, when you have understanding of a product, there's a market for it, and you could actually more like use statistics data of what has happened over time and how that product could actually more like, yeah, serve as a happy hands. I think it's a good to go to actually more like go ahead and create. Yeah, it's amazing.
yeah,
Also, you
I
describe
appreciate.
yourself as a doctor first, an entrepreneur on second out. How do you hold that hierarchy in practice, and what happened in the moment when those two identity pull in different directions?
Yeah. So the first one, it's pretty easy. In the sense of kind of hierarchy. So every medical student, I think across the world, says some version of the Hippocratic Oath, which is basically do no harm and then do good for people, so on and so forth. It's just general good ethics and
Yeah,
morality. There is no Hippocratic Oath for business. There's no set of moral rules. So that's what I knew. That's the way that I practice. And I think the way that most, well-meaning doctors practice. So it was an easy transition that, hey, I'm just going to apply this to the next thing that I do in life, or kind of what I'm doing now. Where it clashes sometimes is with, marketing teams.
yeah,
And there's no issue with marketing teams, right? Their whole job is to promote, and they're
yeah,
finding different ways to promote, but not my current marketing team. My previous marketing team, I remember distinctly, they had, I think, used ChatGPT or some analogous AI tool to look up potential benefits for gut microbiome supplements. And they got on a call with me and they were like, we could say that this, enhances your immune system and it makes your skin clearer and, blah, 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 blah.
yeah.
And I was like, no, we
It does.
can't, because my bar is here that it has to be proven in humans. It has to be a randomized controlled trial. And if there's no data showing it to that level, then I'm not comfortable saying it. So, having that guiding principle is almost makes things easier, because I know where to stop, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's really lovely being that at the end of the day, you're actually more like speaking from the fact that if there is no data to prove that particular stuff, there's no need of running with it being that. I think that saves you a whole lot of stress trying to explain when a particular outcome does not become the result. Yeah, I think it's really lovely. Yeah, thank you for what you're doing. So you wanted to be jack of all trades. hopefully master of all as well. That's a real ambition in a world that rewards specialization and pushes breadth. Where does that drive come from, and what has it cost you along, and what has it given you?
Yeah, that's a great question. If I had to nail it down, it probably comes from my dad.
Mm.
He always kind of taught me. I'll give you an example. I would go home from school, even before college. Whenever we would sit down and have a conversation, we'd talk about politics. We'd talk about history. We'd talk about this. We'd talk about that. He's now retired, but was also an interventional cardiologist, and so he was also very specialized, but had this kind of hunger. He was like, I want to learn about everything, and so in his free time, he didn't go hang out with friends. He didn't
Yeah.
go pursue his hobby. He learned stuff with me and my siblings, and that was really, really cool. And some of my best memories come from that. And so I can say he is responsible for that. In terms of what it's cost me, there is unfortunately a cost that comes with that in terms of time, in terms of attention that you give to family. So I only have one child. She's 4 years old. We can't have those conversations right now. And so when I want to learn something new, I'm on my phone kind of looking up something, or I, a few years ago, I built my first PC. I got really into electronics, and I wanted
Oh,
to get a little breadboard and teach her how to code. And my wife, after a few weeks, reminded me that she's only 2.5. I don't think that she's going to be able to understand any of
yeah.
this. So you learn and you channel it elsewhere. So I got her a bunch of little books that all start with "This is a ball," and it explains like planets and electrons and stuff like that, and using an analogy with a ball. So you channel it in some way. And what it gave me was, I think, a wider scope. The same thing about, no knowledge is wasted knowledge. It's just more data for you to have to make better decisions in life.
Yeah, so true. When you have more data, it's easier for you to explain a whole lot of different things. Yeah, and actually more like get to kind of touch a whole lot of intricate parts being that you know how those things communicate together towards bringing the desired results. Yeah, amazing. So your mantra is no small bullshit. That is easy to say and hard to live, especially in medicine where there is numerous institutional pressure to stay within the line. What has living in that mantra actually required you to do or say that made you uncomfortable?
Yeah, I'll give you a great example. So I make educational videos. I don't have a huge following. They're kind of small, dinky, poorly made videos. But on TikTok and Instagram, just to like educate people about health and a few of the different topics. So after a day of clinic, where from 8:30 to 11:30, I had 29 patients, which translates to like 5, maybe 10 minutes with a patient, and I was basically ranting in my car to some audience on TikTok, right? Saying that, that's not enough time to talk to a patient, to say, hello, how are you doing? Catch up. And then also, address all of their issues. And more importantly, teach them about things they can do in their life to prevent disease, rather than throwing medications at them, which if you need it, you need medications, but prevention is much better than ending up on the table at 2 a.m. with a heart attack, needing an emergency procedure, right? So where I practice, word got around. They saw the video and started scheduling fewer patients for me, and basically got a little bit upset that I had posted about that, because they thought it was reflective of them. It's not reflective of them. It's reflective of the issue with medicine
Yeah,
at large. But yeah, it gets me in trouble every now and then, but
yeah,
overall, it's worth it.
yeah. Amazing.
So now I just double book patients on my own.
Yeah,
Yesterday I was told I can't book more than this many patients, and I said, "Incorrect. Book more."
yeah,
Because they need it.
yeah. It's really amazing you've had that. Despite still being enough for the flexibility is still there to just being creative sometimes and just talk to general audience, other than seeing your clients or seeing more like those who came to the hospital alone as your only audience. I think it's kind of luck. Yeah, quite likely too. So for someone listening, right now who want to improve their hearts and has no ideas about where to start, what are the first three things they should actually do based on the evidence rather than the market?
Absolutely. So I think three important things. So one thing that a lot of people don't know is salt intake or sodium intake. So has a huge role in high blood pressure. And so what I tell people is go into your pantry and look at the sodium and the percent daily value. So if you eat 2 hamburger buns with nothing in between, that's between 11 and 14% of your day's sodium intake. If you use soy sauce for sushi, the serving size is 1 tablespoon. I use more than 1 tablespoon. That's 25% of your day's sodium intake. use hot sauce. It's between 4 and 11% for a teaspoon, depending on the brand, so on and so forth. The reason that's important to limit yourself to 2,000 milligrams or 2 grams of sodium is that A, it contributes to high blood pressure, and then B, high blood pressure constitutes 47% of the risk for blockage in the arteries of the heart, or heart attack, essentially. So that's one thing you can do. Number two, being active. Really, at the end of the day, some sort of activity, even if it's walking at a fast pace, is going to help you with your overall health. And I'm not saying go change your life and start running marathons tomorrow, because you won't be able to sustain it.
Yeah.
6 months later, you'll get tired. You'll skip a day or two, and then you'll backslide. So what I would say is, if you're sedentary right now, you don't move at all, start walking 2,000 steps at the fastest pace that you can a day, and try to keep that up for a few weeks. Increase it as you can. Basically, do something that is sustainable, because something is better than nothing. And then number three, diet-wise, understanding that eating healthy is sometimes more expensive than eating unhealthy, but eating what's called a pesco-Mediterranean diet. Pesco just means fish. So when you choose meat, try to choose fish more often rather than beef, for example, or red meat. Mediterranean just means leafy greens, extra virgin olive oil, healthy nuts, and healthy beans like, chickpeas, garbanzo beans, so on and so forth. That is has the most evidence behind it, and is the most heart healthy diet that you could pursue. So those three things: watch your sodium, move more than you are now, and then eat healthier, fish, leafy greens, so on and so forth.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. So also you teach how to read science so they can evaluate claim for themselves. A non-scientific person trying to figure out whether a supplement is legitimate or snake oil. What are the three questions they should ask anyway ask before spending their money?
Absolutely. So a few things that I would look at. Number one, I would make sure that the study is in humans, not in some other species. That's an easy one. Number two, I would look at the conclusion and make sure that the study actually shows that it's doing what the company is telling you the health benefit is. The third thing I would do is look at the journal that the study is published in, and just Google, something like how much it costs to publish in this journal. The reason that's important is that there are a bunch of journals out there. The good ones, you don't pay to get your science accepted. The bad ones, you pay to get your science accepted. And people don't know that. So you're essentially, those journals that you have to pay for, they will publish virtually any data, no matter how bad it is, as long as you pay $3,000 or $4,000, because it's a money-making scheme for them. So those are three kind of easy steps to see if what they're saying has any kind of truth behind it.
Yeah, study should be in human, and also study. Yeah, should show that what it's doing, if it's actually more like complacent, and also look at the journal. Is it a paid version or just one? A whole lot to actually want to get to look at. And so, last, for clinicians or scientists listening right now, who sees a problem in their feet and has no idea of how to fix it out, but is hesitating because they are afraid of what their colleague would think. Where do you think? What should they? What do you want them to?
I would say, you already have that skill.
Mm.
We tell patients things they don't want to hear all the time. We tell patients things that are uncomfortable, like, hey, you need to lose weight. You're essentially calling somebody fat. That doesn't feel good for the patient. It's a little bit uncomfortable to say at the beginning, but then you get used to it. So you already have that skill. You've mastered that skill of telling people things that are uncomfortable about their health. This is other people who are your respected colleagues. I understand that, but they're people just like, your patients. They are somebody else's patient, is the way that I would think about it. And that takes away the friction a little bit, and something that I, am guilty of, in the sense that I drag my feet for months and months and months. If you have something to say, you don't have to be on TikTok or Instagram making videos to make money, or you don't have to be salesy. You can just get on there and make videos. And it's beneficial in a way to society if you're educating them about health. And doing that made me a lot more confident to say things that were uncomfortable and not care about what my colleagues were saying. Because I'm saying it to an audience of, people, just regular people. It takes away some of the friction also.
Amazing.
Worth a shot.
Amazing. Thank you so much. This has really been amazing. Thanks so much, Bilal. Yeah, for sharing your heart with us.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
These are great questions.
Yeah.
Great questions and a wonderful dialogue.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So lastly, looking back at the version that you first decided to follow, that passion and to be a jack of all trades. What do you know now about what it takes to build something new in a space that resists change.
Yeah. So I now know to be patient with, suppliers, for example, and, people who are running the logistics because not everybody operates at 5 in the morning or 2 in the morning. Our chief operating officer had to talk to me in a very stern voice one time and tell me that you can't send an email at 11 p.m., midnight, and 2 a.m. because then you look like you're manic and people aren't awake at those hours. So maybe tone it down a little. So being a little bit more gracious and understanding that, this is different and people operate on different schedules. That's something that I now know that I didn't know before. And also, a lot of people out there don't know about health. We actually don't get taught that very well in K through 12 or in school. We don't know about the body that we inhabit from the time we open our eyes for the first time to the time that we close it for the final time. So people need educating, and being able to put it in simplistic terms that people can understand was already something that you should be able to do as a doctor, but I think I've gotten better at it, interestingly, through business.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much, Bilal, for sharing. Yeah, your heart with us on this particular topic today, this particular episode. That's really the amazing. So from all things, we would love to connect with, reach out to you, and how can they reach out to you, and where is the best platform?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm on TikTok. It's at Dr. Bilal Ahmed 4 because apparently there are 3 other Dr. Bilal
Yeah,
Ahmeds on there. You can also email me at bilal@lylahhealth.com. I can drop these in the chat for you. Usually I'll respond within 48 hours. Just give me 2 days. And any question you want to ask about business, health. I can't give personal health advice without examining you. That's not ethical, but I can give you general health advice. And then, on the website itself, there's an email link, lylahhealth.com, and that'll get routed to me as well. So a few different places to find me.
yeah. Thank you so much, Bala. Thank you for sharing, bringing it to clarity. Yeah, this rigor and the refusal to compromise, to quit doing. Yeah, you reminder that the most powerful thing a credential expert can do is use that credibility to tell the truth in a space full of noise. Is one this audience actually really needs. Yeah, remember, no bullshit ever. That is not just a mantra; it's a standard. That is the one worth building your life out. Once again, it's really a pleasure and honor have you on the show, Bala.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir.